So what would you think that the biggest struggle that you see in your coaching and facilitation? Because I know you work with a lot of tech companies and probably other
Yeah.
companies, and you see teams struggle, leaders struggle.
Mm,
What is the major one that you would
mm.
think they struggle with?
You know, I can trace part of it is the lens that I look through, right? So much
Mhm.
of my lens is behavioral and
Mhm.
communication, but I can take just about any situation that teams are challenged with. I think today teams are often dealing with it shows up as a breakdown in communication, or people will say we have this one, leadership teams are infamous for saying we have this one difficult person who's on the team and we are trying to work together as a leadership team, or warring factions on leadership teams, like someone that owns marketing and someone that owns operations, sort of dueling it out for scarce
Mhm.
resources, and kind of taking that perspective. So I think there are often uh, teams today are faced with constant uncertainty and complexity. And so I think there's lots of small things that start to show up as breakdowns in a team. I could trace all of it back to behavior. Like there will be a behavioral kind of structural story to what's happening in the conversation that then manifests itself as a breakdown in a team or a difficult person. And so
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing I just always come back to, do we make space to think and talk together as a team?
Mhm.
Or are we just so busy running down the road that we can't get in the car in order to help things go faster? So I think I think we all, I'd put myself in that boat, believe that we are excellent at communication because we do it all day, every day. But I think the biggest challenge is that in that communication, we assume that everybody sees the same reality that we do. And the
Mhm.
fact is that we'll see really different realities. So like, as you and I have been talking about, someone who has a behavioral model, a leadership model that maybe values pace and calmness,
Mhm.
intersecting with someone who has a different behavioral model that values action and pace. Like the challenge will be that those two individuals are going to think and talk together differently. Like sometimes that will be serving, the difference will be serving, and other times the difference will actually be separating. And so how do we name it so that we can
Mhm.
work through it and value the difference?
Mhm.
So
So then I would say we are running down. We're probably we're probably on like a speeding train
yeah,
going, just
yeah,
going. How do we make that time
mm,
to have those conversations to make sure that we're aligned and we're
yeah,
talking, the same language? Because I feel like that does happen all of the time.
yeah,
They're warring, but because we have, let's say, a project that we have to do right now, we don't have time to really
yeah,
deal with that elephant in the room or that bigger conversation. So how can
yeah,
teams do that a little bit more frequently or
yeah.
better work with having those conversations?
I'll share a story about my own team. So within Team Catapult, we have a value around that.
Mhm.
And shortly after the pandemic started, what we experienced was lots of growth, and growth brought more pace, more busyness, needed for more capacity. So everything just continued to expand. And then what I started to realize is that what some space we had for communication was really going away. And the story about, if you've ever heard the thing about taking the jar and putting the big rocks in first, the things that are the most important, and then you fill in with other
Mhm.
things. The calendar, I felt like we were just at the mercy of a calendar, and it was really running the show. And it became super impossible to schedule any block of time beyond 30 minutes with everybody. So what we did, we cleared, we went out as far as we had to. I think we had to go out about 6 months. And I just started finding, the first Thursday of every month, I found a time and we started blocking off a half day.
Mm.
And over the last 3 years, it's become our norm. We now have the first Thursday of every month is a half day container to hold relationship building. So there's no agenda, there's no facilitator. It's really about using that time to come together and talk about the things that we really need to talk about and actually slow the pace. Because there were plenty of meetings that we had that had agendas and time boxes, and we had to keep moving. We didn't have time. Like something would happen, in a relationship or between one of us, and then there was no time to clean it up or follow up, and then conversations were going offline. And that's another principle that we have, is to bring conversations online rather than take them, one-on-one. So that's how we did it.
Yeah.
But I think that any structure, I like, the question becomes, how do you put structure? How do you make it a big rock and something that you prioritize ahead of time? Because life will absolutely take over.
Yeah. And how do you keep that block on the calendar and not let it, bow down to
Yes.
the mercy of other
Yep.
meetings too, I think. So it's great that you have it consistent and it's now a pattern, right?
And we preserve it. There are only a couple of times where, somebody has a conflict, and then they just step out and we keep going. But yeah, we preserve